Yes, welcome to the Biz Communication Show. I'm your host, Bill Lampton. Every week, hosting a business communication expert. And if you listen to our discussion and if you apply the tips and strategies that our business communication expert brings during our discussion, you will be able to boost your business dramatically. Today, I'm very pleased to host a terrific speaker, business coach, internationally known Terry Brock. Not only that, a longtime advisor, coach, and personal friend of mine. Terry Brock has spoken in many countries. He's presented seminars. He's an expert in technology and relationship marketing. Recently, Terry received the coveted National Speakers Association top award, the Cavett Award. Here's what the organization says about that award. The Cavett Award is NSA's most cherished award. It is presented annually to the member whose accomplishments over the years have reflected outstanding credit, respect, honor, and admiration in the association and the speaking profession, and whose actions in terms of sharing, guiding, and inspiring other members most closely parallel the illustrious career of NSA's co-founder, Cavett Robert. And having known Terry first through National Speakers Association for more than 2 decades, I can tell you that not only does he deserve that award, but I told him it's long overdue. And so happy to see him get that recognition. And happy to have him with us here today. Hello, Terry Brock.
Bill, it is great to be with you today. Thank you very much for that kind introduction.
All the way from Orlando, Florida, Terry Brock.
Yes, Terry, indeed. We're getting just a little bit of rain right now, but that's okay.
Yeah.
It's good for anyone that needs to eat.
Some parts of the country have had far more rain than they need. It's about time Florida got a little bit, I guess. Terry, today we're going to talk about presentation skills. We're going to discuss 2 different approaches. One would be the traditional approach, where the speaker is facing an audience that he sees, the audience sees him. It's a speaker present in the situation. And then we're going to spend some time talking about more contemporary, more recent, and more innovative ways of you and I, our business professionals, sharing our ideas with an audience, whether the audience be 12 people, 120, or 12,000. And amazingly, they don't have to be present. You have mastered both types of presentation. So I'm going to start, as I said, with the traditional type of speaking. So Terry, let's say that a business leader comes to you, as many of them have for coaching. They say, I have an important presentation coming up. I need your expertise, Terry. Well, where would you start? What would you try to cover? And how would you accomplish it, Terry?
Well, that's a tall order there, but what I would do is want to find out some things about what they want to accomplish. What is it that they're trying to connect with the audience regarding, and where are they heading? And what are their ultimate outcomes? Do they want to sell a product? Do they want to inform? Do they want to entertain? Is it an update? I'd want to find out what the audience is really looking for. And I think that's the key. Bill, you talk about this a lot as you being having a doctorate in communication. You know, you find out what people are looking for and you tailor your message according to what is appropriate for them. So that's where I would start. And I would probably do a lot more asking questions initially than I would be giving any statements. I think too often we start with lots of statements, you should do this, this, and this, which might be true in some circumstances, but I think we have to be very sensitive to the context, be sensitive to what people are looking for.
Yes, and what we're saying is, Terry, that there's no cookie cutter way to provide speech coaching.
You're right.
We analyze what the needs are, and we come up with a coaching plan which will help that person succeed with, as you say, what they want to accomplish. Let's suppose that the person who comes to you says, Terry, I'm very inexperienced at speaking, and I'm also very challenged and very frightened about the situation. How can you help me along those lines?
I think that's an important question. Matter of fact, interesting, I have a client that I'm working with right now saying almost to a word those same expressions. And it's really important because today, your career success, it can be enhanced or inhibited by how you present, both in person and now increasingly how you present yourself on video.
I
And
agree
it's
with
very
that so
important.
fully, Terry, because many people have excellent ideas. The world is not short of good ideas. But the key is, as you said, can we take those ideas and articulate them so that people are drawn, almost magnetized by the way we say it and by what we say? Uh, Otherwise, if we cannot do that, then the person who's our competitor, either within our organization or outside our organization, that competitor who can get their ideas across persuasively, compellingly, interestingly, and sometimes even amusingly, that person is going to get the contract that we wanted.
Hmm. Yep, you're absolutely right.
So, what other steps would you take to help this business professional who's speaking in what we call you and I are calling today the standardized traditional way of speaking to an audience? First, as you said, you'd find out what they really want to accomplish. Second, you would try to ease their fears. What are two or three other tips you'd give them?
I'd want to find out what kind of information and what level the people are that he's going to be addressing. Because if they're, for instance, if they're kindergartners, they're going to be one way that you would communicate with them. If, on the other hand, they're graduating from high school, would be a little bit different. And if they were business leaders and they're in a mature stage, then that's going to be different. So it all really depends on what their need is. And I'd want to find out, are they in a particular industry? If they're in a given industry, find out and do some research on that. Find out some ideas of what's cutting edge technology, what procedures and operations are working right now in that industry, and what's not working, how things have changed in the last few years. Often we'll go to a program, we want to go there because we're going to make our lives better because we are listening to this expert or experts be able to talk to us and help us in guiding our lives and preparing. If they can tell me, hey, in your industry, Terry, what worked 2 years ago has now just been changed because of this new device. And that's happening more and more. Like, for instance, just to use one hypothetical example, those who have been helping all of us keep us with food, with our materials, with the goods, all of this, called truck drivers, are now going through some major changes. And we're seeing right now there's a huge demand for them. If those that can come up to speed, you can't just get someone real quick. You got to get somebody that knows what they're doing. There's training. But long term, 5, 10 years from now, we know that we can use robots, artificial intelligence, to do it much safer. And when you look at the economics of it, that's just one, as in one example, it takes, I believe, I could be off in my numbers a little bit here. I think it's something like 4 to 6 days to go from California to New York, say, legally. Now, of course, you could stay there, but to make sure they get the right amount of sleep, hey, that's a good thing for all of us. We want to make sure they get sleep. However, with a robot doing it, with artificial intelligence, we make sure that everything is done according to GPS. It's on track. They only need to fill up and they just keep going. And they can do it in a matter of about 2.5 to 3 days. Safer, cheaper, more efficient. Well, that means if you're there and I'm speaking to that group, I'm going to say, here's some things you want to look at. Start learning some other areas, start training, learning in some other different areas that can help you more. So I think the whole key is when you're presenting is be very in tune and know as much as you can about that audience, where their problems are, where their pain points are, and where they could be, and then come up with ideas where you can help them.
We're focusing now on content. Let's switch to delivery because you and I have seen vast changes in delivery styles. Probably, Terry, 25 years ago, it would be acceptable for a business leader to come before an audience, stand there, have a manuscript, be tied to that manuscript, and it was fairly acceptable for you to do that and to recite word for word what you had written, almost as though a speech were an essay standing on its hind legs. What do you advise business professionals in their speaking? What do you ask them to do in trying to get a point across to an audience? I'm sure it's not manuscript reading.
Oh, exactly. In most cases today in business, what you'll want to do is you will want to talk from the heart. You want to be able to come at them in a real conversational way. I often say, think of it as if we just had a wonderful meal. Now we're going to go into the family room. We're going to sit down, beverage of our choice, and we're going to talk about a topic that's important to both of us, that we really want to learn about, and we're going to have a good conversation. I think that's what they want. And today, more than, say, 20, 30 years ago, people want a lot of, here's the key word, interaction. They don't want that sage on the stage just there throwing out all the information. They want to have some way that they can connect with others. Often I find when I'm speaking, people really like it. My audiences love to break up into smaller groups of 2, 3, 4 people, and I'll present a question. What would you do about da-da-da-da? And a major industry issue, or what are you doing right now about this? Asking a question. And then let each of them come up with ideas. And then after, when it's over, go around the room saying, okay, over here, this group, what did you come up with on that? What did you have to say? Oh, interesting. How about over here? What did you have? And that interaction becomes important. And we become more than the sage on the stage. We're now much more of a facilitator, going in there and finding out what others are going through, where their challenges are. And if we start hearing over and over people going, yeah, we got this problem. Yeah, we don't know what to do about that. Yeah, we came up with the same thing. Now that gives you the opportunity to say, okay, let's deal with it that way. But you notice what I'm doing is I'm shifting from, hello, I have all the knowledge and I will impart it to you today, to much more of a, I really am stumped on that one. I don't know the answer, but let's figure it out. And it's a matter of taking a little bit from here, a little bit from there, and blending it together in many cases. Now I say many cases because there is a time, even today, still, you want to literally read that presentation. Not very often, but occasionally. That would be a classic if you are called to present to Congress, or maybe you're in court, and every word you use is when you're saying it under oath, or it's extraordinarily important that every word and phrase is exactly what you want it to be, no deviation. Okay, in that case, you'd want it written down, but also even then, you want to come across as a human being. We're familiar right now as we're recording this with hearings that are being held in Washington, and were held just last week for Supreme Court justice. And they're looking at that. How you come across, the way that you react, your body language is extraordinarily important, and you want to be reachable, you want to be likable. That's most important today.
I like the way you describe the the disappearance of the sage on the stage. And truly, Terry, there's some things that we want people to feel when our presentation is over. Number one, I enjoyed it. Number two, I learned something. And number three, the time really flew by. That doesn't happen when it's a solo speaker up there. It reminds me of long ago comedian Jimmy Durante, who a few listeners might remember, who had a saying which was almost his trademark: everybody wants to get in on the act. And when speakers, our business leaders, recognize that, not only does the audience enjoy it more and learn more, but we learn more. The presenter learns more. You get ideas from people that you wouldn't get any other way. Now, our time is fleeting by, but we do have a few minutes here, 2 or 3, where you can tell what's the alternative, new, contemporary way of getting our message across to an audience without that old, I'm here and the audience is here before me. What are some of the ways that you'd recommend that you use?
Well, one that we're doing right now is using Zoom. You and I are using Zoom. Years ago, you and I were using Skype. Now, the difference is it would break down in communication every few moments. It seemed that was years ago. Now, these technologies are much better. Skype and Zoom and many others are good, and that's how we're doing it. We can sit here or stand here like I'm standing now, moving around. It gives the energy and the life of it, but I can present to literally millions of people via this technology. And so that's where, for business leaders today, you want to learn how to present on video and how you would present live, say from a stage, to a group of people, interacting with them and making sure that it's effective. I think the real key is, throughout history, we've had to adapt and change. We talk about Jimmy Durante. We talk about people, say, from 20 or 30 years ago. I would also look at those, say, from the late 1800s, William Jennings Bryan, and what he did, and the kind of rhetorical, bombastic style that he had, and those kind of presentations that worked then. But even in that era, Calvin Coolidge was more of a reticent, kind of quiet thinking man. He was suddenly thrust in the position of being president when Warren G. Harding died suddenly. Now he was vice president, he's president. And in 1924, he had to run, he chose to run for president, but he couldn't compete with these guys that were William Jennings Bryan and the great orators that they were. But what he did is he learned this newfangled technology that had just come out called radio. And he, in his personal conversational style, connected with millions of Americans. They listened to him and they felt like, I know him, he likes us, he understands us, versus these others that were using more of the old style from the late 1800s, early 1900s. And so the key is adapt. Learn video today. Learn how to connect. There's some skills of what to do. Make sure you have good audio, have good video, good lighting. There's some things that, Bill, you talk to people about all the time and help many people with that as well. I do as well. There's a lot there. And I would say, for those of you that are watching this, learn those skills, master them on both video and in presenting in person.
Terry, there are a couple of comments I want to make before I ask for your contact information. What you are saying now is so valuable. And a couple of comments I want to make is, one is that wipes out the geographical barrier. We can communicate with and teach and interact with people globally. You've spoken, as I understand, in about 40 countries, but now you can speak in all the countries at once. You don't have to be there. And secondly, it's very cost effective. The equipment is not expensive. And third, it's quite easy to learn. I know when I wanted to learn how to use Zoom, which we're talking on now, I scheduled a coaching session with you. We recorded it. I had it to watch over again and again if I needed to. Before long, I was interviewing people on Zoom. I think this is probably near the 50th interview that I've conducted, and I couldn't have done any of it without your instructions. So I will say, Terry, whether it's you or whether it's me, or any experienced communication coach, you can learn all of this much more easily if you get someone who's experienced in it and can teach you. I suppose I could have dug and maybe learned a few things. It goes back to that statement that you've made so many times. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So get a good coach to help you. Terry, this is all so fascinating, as always my conversations with you are, and keep your calendar handy, my friend, because I'll call on you again. I know our viewers and our podcast listeners will want your contact information, so please give that to us now.
Sure. Well, I can be reached on many of the social media platforms that are out there, and the place to go would be my website. You can find out about it there, and that's at terrybrock.com, and that's spelled Terry, and Brock is spelled the right way, B-R-O-C-K. So terrybrock.com, and we'll be able to get in touch, and I'll be able to help you. Looking forward to answering questions. For those of you that are watching this, if you have questions about communication or using some of the video, we can help you on that.
And I will say, from my longtime personal association and professional association with Terry Brock, he's an extremely approachable guy. Don't let it scare you away that he's won the top award in National Speakers Association and spoken worldwide. This guy is extremely approachable, generous, and helpful. So you will want to contact him. Now that Terry has shared his contact information, I'm glad to share mine. Bill Lampton, the biz communication guy, and so logically, my website is bizcommunicationguy.com. Go there, review my services for corporations and individuals. I invite you to do that. sign up for my online newsletter and call me to discuss how I can assist you in your biz communication. Terry Brock, any closing thoughts for our viewers and listeners?
Yeah, I would say communication is so important. It's a matter of people connecting. And I think we need more of that in today's world. Too often people want to just talk at people rather than listening to them. And I think we could heal a lot of the problems in our world today if we would take the time to listen and ask questions without jumping in with what we perceive as the right answer. Let's learn. Let's try to communicate. And Bill, you've done that yourself, and you've taught many people how to do that through the years. And I would encourage those that are watching this to get in touch with Bill Lampton. This man knows what he's talking about. He's got a real Ph.D. in communication. I mean, it's real. I told him I could get him one for $1 on the internet. It wouldn't be real. It would be a fake one, but it still would have saved him a lot of money. But he had to do the whole thing and get a real one. But he has helped many people, including me. I've read his books, read his information, and what he talks about with communication can help you and your people. So I would say get in touch with him. And that would be what I would say, Bill.
Thank you, Terry Brock. Great to have all of you with us today. Please be with us again next week on the Biz Communication Show, when once more we will have a conversation with a business communication expert. As I said at the outset, listen to these experts, apply what they learn, and you will boost your business dramatically. Thanks again. I'm Bill Lampton.